Greetings, traveler. I am Sir Nox, the teller of tales. Would you like to hear one? Well, this one is called DM Allows Too Much Freedom During Player Creation. This story is from many years ago and takes place in a system called Rifts. It's essentially every fictional world thrown together as a futuristic Earth. The silliness of this concept would be apparent later on. None of us have ever played this system before, except the DM, who helped us create characters individually. So we didn't talk with each other before for a session where we had our characters ready. One specific rule in Rifts is important: the concept of mega damage, or MD. This is reserved for buildings, mechs, tanks, fantastical creatures. 1 MD is equal to 100 normal damage, rounded down. A typical human with a handgun does something like 4d6 damage and has 10 to 50 HP. This makes sense, as there's no way a naked guy would survive a tank round to the face, regardless of how many orcs he has killed. So anyway, during character creation, I asked what is allowed. DM shows me the books he got and explains that all other systems can be included as well, though some conversion might be necessary. I go with the gentle ogre, who was an escaped slave. DM told me to use one of the fantastical creatures as a template, meaning I had an MD HP with MD fist attacks. I could fight a tank even before choosing a class. Went with a high-speed class as that seemed like the most powerful combination. So first session comes around. None of us knew what the other players had created. First player's an elven ranger with a tech bow, meaning he shot regular arrows enchanted by normal damage lightning. His gimmick was a crazy number of attacks per round. Second player was a human mage. All his attack spells dealt normal damage. Third was a berserker dwarf, also normal damage, HP, and damage. Even on a crit, none of them could reach MD range, nor could they survive a single MD. The other players were furious. All of them simply assumed that MD races, classes, items were off limits. DM assured us that it didn't matter, as this wasn't a combat-heavy campaign. It was exactly a combat-heavy campaign. First quest was fetching an item from a fortress guarded by humans armed with rifles. It was resolved quickly by me bashing through the walls, ignoring the gunfire, picking up the item, and leaving. I felt like playing Quake on God mode with everybody looking at me like I'm an a-hole. Next session, the DM tried to fix things. First, he points out that while we can't afford something like a mech suit, we could afford the MD repair tape. The other players would simply wrap themselves like a mummy and get MD armor. The mage also had a spell, turn liquid into water, which worked on sight. This became an instant kill spell to any creature that had been damaged by converting its blood, even if the creature had MD health and took normal damage. The elf and dwarf remained absolutely useless. It was a very silly campaign. Thankfully, it ended quickly. Well, this just goes to show that nothing is quite better than D&D. I'm looking at you, everything else. That's really not your fault. It's a new game and just people didn't know. That's what experience does when you play new things. You learn, oh, I should do this better next time. Crazy. Honestly, it sounds like you were just the Hulk. You were allowed to be the Hulk or the Juggernaut, and everyone else was mad that they had to be, I don't know, something else, because all the other X-Men are actually kind of cool, even though Hulk isn't an X-Men. Okay, moving on. Our next story is called Stalker in Matt Colville's West Marches server, whatever that is. This is a few years ago. I was a DM/admin for a Discord West Marches server that Matt Colville used to advertise in the lower half of his video descriptions. I DM'd for this woman, I'll call her Ash, in the UK, and 3 of her friends and a random that joined last second, I'll call him Germ, as we could fit 5 players. Germ just wanted to see how the game was going to work, so they joined 20 minutes early and we talked in the voice channel for a bit. The other players came in and we got started. Germ went silent as soon as everyone came in. I couldn't help but chuckle to myself. He seemed young, so maybe he didn't feel comfortable talking to women yet. So I made all tokens while Ash and her friends talked for a bit, and when I asked for everyone to introduce themselves while I put things together, Germ typed that their mic wasn't working. I felt bad for him for a bit. We've all been there, choked up when girls are around. We get the end of the game after the players fight off a bunch of gnolls and undead. Bit of bragging, but it was one of the finest games I've ever DM'd. So I'll whip it out. Germ finally pipes up and says,
That was a great game, Ash. Thank you for inviting me.
I thought that it was weird since Germ invited himself, but I smile and think, oh good, finally breaking the ice. Ash just starts screaming for Germ to go fuck himself and die. I mute everyone for a moment and then pull Ash into a room and ask, what was going on? Why is she acting like that to some poor kid? She tells me that as an admin I should know. I explain I didn't since I was so new, and for her to explain. Turns out this guy Germ had been harassing her for months in this server. So I look back in the logs we kept on a Google Doc. It's all of the incidents and bans in the history of the server, and I find about 3 to 4 dozen reports of the same guy finding a way around the ban to get back into the server. He worms their way into every game she's in and then proceeds to try and DM his creepy fetishized fanfic of what they did in that session. I insta-ban Germ's account after seeing his newest DM. The line that will always stick with me is, "And her sweaty feet squished the gnoll's head like a rotten watermelon." I talk to Ash again for a bit and I tell her I will find a way to keep them from getting back into the server. We close down the server for a bit and re-interview everyone on the server. Have them talk to us for a few minutes to see if it's the same guy or not. Get rid of 3 or 4 accounts that are suspected to be clones of Germs. We open the server back up and make audio interviews mandatory to join the server. All this headache because this guy cannot be a creep. Oh, can't not be a creep. I was gonna say, sounds pretty creepy. Well, good for you. I'm actually glad you went out of your way to do this much work to make your community feel safe. Good for you. That's actually amazing. I'm sorry I laughed earlier. It could be a traumatic experience, but the way it just was written made me chuckle quite a bit. Our next tale is called DMPC's Overrun Everything. Party doesn't seem to mind. I got invited to an in-progress campaign back in the spring with my GF at the time, and I was super excited because the group seemed awesome and the DM was very prepared and knowledgeable. That's always a good sign. A few hours into my first session with them, everything seemed to be going well, but I kind of raised my eyebrows a bit when we reached a social encounter and a few DMPCs started talking for the party. I sort of cut in and asked who they were, and the party told me that they had 3 or so extra characters along for the ride to keep them pointed in the right direction and fill out the team comp. This was a pretty big red flag for me. In my opinion, DMPCs are a no-no 90% of the time. But I was new and it didn't seem to bother anyone else, so I figured it was just how they did things. Over the next few months, we had tons and tons of awesome sessions, and the DMPC thing wasn't really a huge issue. It only really came up every now and then when one of them happened to be a way tougher and stronger tank than our paladin or fighter. Or when a different one seemed to be the only party member with a connection to the world or the BBEG, and was always getting those sweet, sweet RP opportunities. Just the DM reading dialogue aloud. Other than that and a few stolen last hits, the only other strange thing he did was provide a player with an OC of his own with unusually high stats. Cut to about a month ago, we're gearing up for a kind of the final confrontation arc with the BBEG, and he starts pushing the DMPC thing into overdrive. Every single session has 1 or 2 of them just walking out of the woods and asking to join the party by not so subtly saying that we won't be able to beat the BBEG without them. At this point, we have 4 active PCs and 7 DMPCs. 2 that I think are the DM's OCs, 2 that are now inactive players that have just continued to level and accompany us, 2 that are named D&D lore characters, and an entire fucking dragon! As the fights increase in difficulty, our characters die more and more, and the DMPCs always make it to the end and do everything cool. Goodness, that sounds so whiny. Here's one really bad example. The party had missed our long rest, and we'd gone 3 to 4 medium-ish encounters since the last one. All of the PCs were wanting to rest, but the DMPCs kept pushing to go into a dungeon and saying that we could rest inside. Once inside, we asked to rest again, and the DM told us it was unsafe. So we asked to go back outside, and the DMPCs got mad at us. While we were arguing, a major boss showed up. I said out loud that we should not take the fight since we were all on low health and out of resources. And then the DM told us that this boss is apparently one of his OC's personal enemies. So he attacks, and we have to roll initiative. 3 of the 4 PCs died nearly immediately. Mine was charmed from the first turn, and the 4th got knocked out. But the DM kept playing out the turns with the DMPCs versus the enemies until they won. then describing in great detail how they dealt the killing blow and what they said during. This took more than an hour. In our most recent session, we were confronted with 2 dragons, way out of our league, 3 magic users, and some foot soldiers. The rest of the party settled for fighting some of the foot soldiers, while the DMPCs ripped through the cooler enemies. But I thought my character would want to get some of the glory himself, so I used a cool build to get him to the back line to attack one of the magic users. I coordinated with another party member to keep me healed up, made a strategy to deal with it, special on death effect, and did almost all of the damage. Finally, when it was almost down, I tried to blitz it with action surge plus extra attack, which he ruled meant 3 attacks instead of 4, but whatever, and left it on just a hair of health. As soon as my turn was over, he had the DMPCs run over and finish it off with a clearly pre-prepared couple of lines about what the death looks like. With so many pieces in play, this combat encounter had taken north of 4 hours, and the PCs spent the whole time shooting water guns and getting decked by high CR abilities. I know the obvious solution is just talk to your DM, but the other players really don't seem that bothered by it. They've all been playing together for years and rotate DM every campaign, and there's clearly a lot of love there, which is awesome. This one should be wrapped up and done pretty soon, but I just figured I would vent. I have never ever seen a DM so clearly skilled and ambitious just to turn a game into a solo RP experience before, especially not one with such a dedicated and attentive party. I honestly I don't know what to say. If everyone likes it, that's just their thing. You joined in on something that they don't seem to care about. Or maybe they do care and they understand that that's his playstyle, and since they do a rotation kind of thing after every campaign, it's not a big deal. Who knows? I don't know. It does sound, it sounds super annoying. I'm with you. I understand. But if I joined a party of a campaign that was on a rotation thing and everyone seemed to not mind, then so be it. I'll be there. I'll treat it like an audiobook. I'm just here to listen to what you wrote. But if you're not into that, then obviously leave. Or just bear it out like you're doing and wait till the next campaign and see if things change with the new DM.